You said nothing. And that's what hurt them most. Not the long messages, not the late-night calls, not the tears on the phone. It was the empty space you left behind, the sudden quiet, the invisible door closing. Carl Jung understood this paradox. Sometimes absence shouts louder than words, and the psyche can't bear the echo. Tonight we'll explore why your silence burns, and how reclaiming your distance becomes the ultimate power move. Let's begin. They dismissed your feelings, belittled your boundaries, laughed when you tried to explain. You argued, pleaded, apologized, until every conversation felt like swimming against a riptide. You stayed calm until you couldn't. You stayed kind until you were depleted. You stayed loyal until it broke you. Then one day, you simply stopped. No grand farewell, no dramatic announcement, just a long, deliberate exhale and a quiet, sacred exit. At first, they seemed unfazed, unbothered, untouched. But then, something shifted. The messages started, the random likes, the guilt-laced inquiries. Hey, you okay? Just thinking about you. You've been quiet. But it's not curiosity. It's not love. It's panic. And Jung would say, that panic has nothing to do with you, and everything to do with the fragile illusion you just shattered. To Jung, relationships are mirrors. We project the parts of ourselves we cannot own, the shadow, onto the people closest to us. The more unconscious we are, the more violently we project. And narcissistic personalities? They've built an entire identity by projecting shame onto others. As long as you stayed, you were the screen, the scapegoat, the emotional landfill. You absorbed their guilt, their insecurity, their fear. You became the container for what they refused to process. But when you left, the container disappeared, and the shadow came home. Your silence equals a mirror turned inward, and that mirror is unbearable. They told themselves you were dramatic, overthinking, too emotional, too sensitive. It worked, for a while. But now there's no one to contradict, to confuse, to control. Just stillness. And in that stillness, something unbearable emerges. The truth. Jung said, he who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens. But for the narcissist, that awakening feels like psychological death, because the entire ego structure was built on a simple fantasy. I am never the problem. And your silence says, yes, you are. They don't miss your presence. They miss your reaction, your reactivity, your emotional energy. They miss the power they felt when they could affect your nervous system, when they could say one cruel sentence and watch you unravel. That was never love. That was emotional supply. And now that it's gone, they panic. But not because they lost you, because they lost control. Let's be honest, they didn't flinch when you cried, didn't soften when you explained, didn't reflect when you told them they were hurting you, because their goal was never connection. It was control. The more you reached, the more they withdrew. The more you begged, the colder they became. And now, you've stopped reaching. You've stopped performing. You've stopped needing anything from them. And that is the first time they feel unsafe, because control depends on predictability, and silence breaks the pattern. They thought you'd keep playing your role, the pleaser, the caretaker, the emotionally available one. But you went quiet, detached, still. And in that stillness, they're forced to feel what they've spent a lifetime avoiding: emptiness, insignificance, powerlessness. They've never had to face themselves. You always shielded them from it. Until now. Silence is not passive. It's power, in its purest form. Silence is what happens when the soul refuses to explain itself to people committed to misunderstanding it. It's not revenge. It's not manipulation. It's not cruelty. It's truth, held without apology. And that truth destroys illusions, especially the ones built on your self-abandonment. You may feel guilt, You may doubt yourself, because empaths are conditioned to explain everything, to wrap every exit in softness, to make sure everyone else is okay, even as they bleed. But Jung said, loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important. Your silence isn't isolation. It's truth no longer available for distortion. It's communication for those willing to listen beyond words. They may accuse you of ghosting, of abandoning, of being cold. That's projection. Because what really hurts is the absence of your emotional labor, the energy they felt entitled to, the empathy they expected on demand. They don't grieve you. They grieve their grip on you. And that's how you know your silence is working. Let's talk about what happens next. Because when you go quiet, they don't just disappear. They escalate, sometimes with charm, sometimes with guilt, sometimes with anger. Each one is a test of whether you'll abandon yourself to keep the connection alive. Let's break them down. The charm phase. You'll get "I've changed" messages, sudden nostalgia, little breadcrumb check-ins. Remember when we went to the lake? I saw something that reminded me of you. I miss your energy. But it's not about reconnection. It's about re-establishing control. They need to know they can still hook you, that they still live rent-free in your nervous system. Don't fall for it. Silence is the most honest answer you can give to fake growth. Then comes the guilt. You're really just going to ignore me? After everything I've done for you? I guess I never mattered. This is emotional manipulation, disguised as vulnerability. They don't feel guilty. They're trying to make you feel guilty. So you'll break the silence, so you'll make them feel okay again. But their guilt isn't yours to carry. Release it. Let it fall like old skin. Then comes the rage. When charm and guilt fail, they may explode, accuse, insult, twist everything you said. You'll be the villain in their version of events. That's okay. Let them write their fiction. You don't owe the world a counter-narrative. You owe yourself peace, and peace doesn't beg to be believed. But even as you hold your silence, you may feel something inside you crack, because silence is not easy. It forces you to feel everything that words once distracted you from. You may feel grief, not just for them, but for the version of you who stayed too long, who gave too much, who mistook chaos for passion. Grieve her, grieve him, grieve the years. Then, let them go. This isn't just the end of a relationship. It's the end of a pattern. The pattern of losing yourself in the name of love, of confusing pain with purpose, of making silence feel like failure. But this silence, it's sacred. It's where you meet yourself again, where you hear the voice that was drowned out by everyone else's noise. Jung called this the self, the truest part of you, beyond persona, beyond roles, the one who never needed to perform to be worthy, the one who always knew when it was time to walk away. That self is who you return to now. Maybe no one clapped when you left. Maybe no one saw the strength it took to stay silent. But your nervous system knows, your soul knows, and that's enough. You don't need applause, you need alignment, and alignment often looks like long stretches of quiet after a lifetime of noise. Sit in the silence. Feel the discomfort. Let it burn what doesn't belong. On the other side is clarity. They may never say sorry, may never change, may never even remember what they did. But that's okay, because your healing doesn't depend on their memory. It depends on your decision to no longer carry what was never yours. You carried their shame, their anger, their avoidance. And now you lay it down, not with a bang, but with a whisper that says, I choose peace over performance. I choose truth over loyalty. I choose me. This isn't a story of revenge. It's a story of return. Return to your intuition. Return to your body. return to the self that doesn't need to be validated to exist. You don't need to explain your absence. Let it speak for itself. Let it echo through their projections. Let it dismantle the fantasy they tried to pull you into. Let it build a life that doesn't require you to abandon yourself to be loved. Carl Jung said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." You choose now, not just once, but every day. Every time you don't reply, every time you don't explain, every time you don't collapse into your old role, you are becoming, and that becoming is louder than any apology could ever be. If this message found you at the right time, comment truth below. Subscribe for weekly insight into shadow work, boundaries, and the path of individuation. You are not silent, you are sovereign, and your clarity will set you free.